points against Delaware, but had 12 points against Harvard. Brandon Dawson, 26 points in 12 of 15 against Harvard. And one of the best guards in the country and all Big Ten selection, Gary Harris, 28 points in this tournament. They're scoring and they're scoring. They're playing very good defense. But Virginia's really going to test them. For my money, I like Michigan State in this tournament because they've been a lot hotter lately. I know both teams recently won their conference tournaments, but Michigan State at the start of the year they're playing like they did at the start of the year, really, when they were number one in the country, and they were clearly the best team for a couple of weeks. And I think if they play well, I think they'll beat Virginia because of their defense and because of the fact I think they're a more physical team. I think that they give Virginia too much to handle, and I say Michigan State advances to the Elite Eight. Next pick, we've got Iowa State and Connecticut. This section of the bracket I had done 2 or 3 different ways. I had Iowa State beat North Carolina, and I had the same 4 teams winning their first round matchups. NC against North Carolina against Iowa State, Connecticut against Villanova. That's how I had it. But I had Villy win, I think, every single time, and it was either Iowa State or North Carolina that alternated. But this game promises to be interesting because Iowa State is scoring a lot of points, 83 per game. It's 11 more points per game than Connecticut is. Get more rebounds, more assists. And Connecticut this tournament has looked very impressive. I know they had to go overtime to beat St. Joe's, but the second round against the second-seeded Villanova, they looked very good. All-American AAC Player of the Year, Shabazz Napier, 17.8 points per game, and he has 49 in this tournament, and he has scored 25 against Villanova. As for Iowa State, they've got Melvin Ejim, 18.1 points per game, and DeAndre Kane, who's got 16.9, had 43 points combined against North Carolina in a very, 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 very impressive win over the Tar Heels. And right now, over the last 16 games, Iowa State's 13-3. I like Iowa State right now because if you look at the team right now, they're scoring so many points. They're playing so good on offense. 93 points against NC Central, 85 points against North Carolina. 2 teams from Carolina they're beating up on. And Connecticut, not one of the best offenses in the country. And if you're going up against Iowa State, it's going to be really tough when you can't score with them. So you got to give it a slight edge to Iowa State. And besides, they're 13-3 in their last 16 games, so they're red hot. So according to that, the East Regional Final will be Michigan State versus Iowa State. Now I got 2 more games. Kentucky versus Louisville, which is going to be a very good game. And then Tennessee versus Michigan. Starting off with Kentucky-Louisville, let's not forget what happened in 2012. Those 2 teams, Rick Pitino's Cardinals and John Calipari's Kentucky Wildcats, met in the Final Four, and Kentucky ultimately took out Louisville 69-61 in a very interesting game. Anthony Davis with 18 points and 14 rebounds. And now they're playing again. Louisville's offense this year is clicking on all cylinders. And they are right now under Coach Rick Pitino 11-0 in the Sweet 16. Well, Rick Pitino's 11-0 because he's coached other schools before this. All-American candidate Russ Smith, great player, 18.1 points per game. Luke Hancock, forward, 37 points in the 2 games this tournament, and two relatively impressive victories, one over Manhattan in the first round, one over St. Louis. And they'll be going up against a Kentucky team that, under John Calipari, Kentucky's 5-1 against Rick Pitino and Louisville. Kentucky's wins included a close win over 9th-seeded Kansas State and a 2-point win over Wichita State, which has been considered their best game of the season. And honestly, it was, considering how great Wichita State was, going 34-0 in the regular season. Kentucky right now, Julius Randle, they have a typo on here, it says Jabari Randall. Julius Randle, 15.1 points per game, and pretty much the entire Kentucky roster is in double digits against Wichita State. And right now, since Calipari arrived, he is 8-2 all-time in the Sweet 16 and 3-0 since arriving at Kentucky. Oh, and let's not forget, these two teams met earlier in the season. These two, and whenever they played in December, Kentucky upset Louisville 73-66. So Louisville's out for revenge, and I think Louisville gets it. I know Kentucky played a great game against Wichita State. That I get, but the problem is that Kentucky put a lot of emotional energy into that game, and Louisville's a little fresher, and they've been white hot as of late, winning their conference tournament. So, if anything, I think Louisville's a slight advantage here because they've won more convincingly this tournament and they haven't been pushed near as much. So I like Louisville to make the Elite Eight and take on the winner of Tennessee and Michigan. And in that game, this game I think is going to be, it's hard to predict because Tennessee, hell, no one expected them to be in the Sweet 16. Hell, they had to play in to get in the tournament. I mean, look what Michigan's done this tournament. Guard Nick Stauskas, 17 points, 4-9 from 3 against Texas. And then you also have Karis LeVert, 13.3, and only had 6 points against Wofford. He had 14 points in 37 minutes against Texas. As for Tennessee, again, it's kind of weird. They're the only play-in team still left. They've won 3 games this tournament. Nobody else has more than 2. I mean, if you look at them this tournament, their play-in game beat Iowa in overtime, beat Massachusetts, and then took out Mercer, who was upset Duke by 20 points. So that was a very impressive performance. But overall, I like Michigan to take on Louisville in the Elite Eight in a rematch of last year's tournament final. Because, let's put it this way, they're more consistent. Michigan is playing better ball right now. They just got to the final of the Big Ten tournament, and if not for Michigan State, they'd have pulled it off. So I think you got to go with Michigan right here. So that sets my Elite Eight. I have Florida versus Dayton. I have Michigan State versus Iowa State, Arizona versus Baylor, and Louisville versus Michigan. After this is over, I'll conclude who I think will win those games in the Elite Eight, if all those teams advance. If not, then I'll just have to break it down with other teams I didn't know would be there. And what I mean by that is, I'll be breaking down all the Elite Eight games whenever it's time to predict them. And if anything, I would have to say right now that if I had to pick 2 teams, the best team right now with the chance to win this tournament in each regional, I'd give Florida the edge because they're the best team in the country and they've looked so dominant over the past month. I'd have to say in the East Regional, I'd give the edge to Michigan State because of their size, their physicality, and because they played really well. I'd give the edge to Louisville because of how good their offense is running in the Midwest. And in the West Regional, Arizona. I know they lost one of their star players earlier near to a foot injury. He's done for the tournament, but they can still score some points. That is my show for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will be back soon with the Elite Eight breakdown. So stay tuned, everybody.